Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Ears to the East on this most grand of occasions, most epic, you might even say, because it is time to discuss a certain 14 narratives, epic narratives, if you will. If this intro is not annoying enough, don't worry, I'll have plenty more to say. Guys, epic narratives by
Howard
Band
has
Maid.
all
Did you
the
know they come out?
narratives.
I guess that's one way of putting it.
Epic,
And
that's another
all the
question.
epicness.
Let us be epic together, folks, for Epic Narratives has arrived. Okay, so well, this has been a long time coming. The last full-length album was obviously Unseen World. We had things like Unleash in the meantime. We've had little singles, we've had things popping up, but this is really it. This is our first chance to have a proper album, sit down and digest a good well, not an hour, but best part of an hour's worth of Band Maid. And so yeah, considering the trajectory they've been on, thoughts, guys, what did you think about this brand new album?
Have any of you watched my review yet?
No. Oh, sorry, that was more of a plug than anything, but okay.
It wasn't because I was guessing if you guys knew my kind of opinion coming into this one. I feel like I'm probably the only person in like the whole bandmade community at the minute, who's not completely enthusiastic about this album, but for many different reasons. So I'll get my negative spin out the way before these two gush all over the new album. But
How do you know? Have you seen my reviews?
I haven't. No,
Have you watched my review? Because it hasn't even been written yet. Anyway,
no, but I watched your reactions though
Mhm.
on Back of Breakdown. So
well, there you go.
I know it's teamwork.
So you already know what I think. Okay,
I do
teamwork,
a little bit.
teamwork.
Exactly. So I came into this one with a couple of complaints, mostly just being like 14 track album looks good on paper. Until you realize that half the album is already out. Like the promotion with this album was a little bit weird. I said this in my review. You can go and check it out on my channel. That's a plug. And I said it takes it takes me like until track 7 to get into this album because the first half of this album is like I already know it. Like we've had the last year and a half of teases and releases and stuff, so it doesn't feel new. It's not until we get to Miku's song that I feel like the second half of the album really kind of picks up, and I'm like, oh, now I can get excited
I
for
do
everything
agree.
I've
It
not
kind
heard.
of feels like a two-parter because one part we already knew and then the second half is new.
It
But
does. It feels really weird coming into this one compared to the last two albums because the last two albums I remember being like so heartedly like massively excited for it, and I came into this one like less so, but just because I knew more about it, if that makes sense. Like they spoil personally a little bit too much. Which leads me to my second complaint. I feel like the mixing's a little bit off on this album. It really feels like half the songs are recorded in one studio and the other half of the songs are recorded in another studio. And you can like once you click onto it and you can kind of tell like which song's been recorded in a different freaking time zone or different year, probably. It really becomes apparent, and it really feels like it feels like a 14 track album, but it feels like split in half. It like Benedikt just said, it feels like the beginning, the first half, and the back half. And I gotta say, I was kind of not lukewarm to the first half. I was just spoiled by the first half. But the back half of the album, man, for me is where the gold is.
I have to say, sound-wise, like I only noticed a difference on "Show Me" with the warning, which kind of makes sense that it would sound a little bit different.
Uh,
But I was also thinking, do any of you have the album version, the actual album version? Because I only saw the music video and maybe the audio is different on
Well, I
those a
mean,
little bit.
I listened through streaming, and as a result, it's going to be the same version, even if there's minuscule differences, in like sort of the
Mm.
quality. Ultimately, through a pair of normal headphones, it's going to be just like the same mix and everything. So yeah, I listened to the album versions as they're presented on streaming. I would agree with, like you said, obviously the song with the warning was very different in the mix. I think that ironically, that mix I didn't mind when the single came out because I expected it to be the guitars to be rolled off and for it to be a little bit less gritty. However, when it suddenly appeared in the album, I was aware that then it suddenly sounded more out of place. So I wish that they'd actually done a separate album mix that had been a little bit more snarly, had a little bit more bite to the guitars. I must say though, actually, I'm kind of intrigued by Neon's comment because actually I've heard a lot of people kind of laying into this album already. I thought it was getting a bit of an unfair rep. Actually, I thought it was.
That's good then. Because
Okay.
I mostly heard positive stuff
not good.
so far.
I've already heard.
I heard a mixture, but I heard a mixture, but I certainly haven't heard people just sort of like throwing praise at it with solely.
I don't.
So what are the complaints besides this too many songs being released beforehand?
Yeah, for me, again, mixing, I think the way that this album's structured, like I said, you shouldn't have to wait till song 7 to like really get to the new stuff. At least if they're gonna sprinkle it, they should have sprinkled some of the songs that have already been pre-released, like a little bit more and orchestrated that, laid that album out a little bit better. Because it really just feels like getting past the first 7 songs is like you kind of like, yeah, this is good.
Though.
I've already heard this. Like give me the new stuff.
I think the problem is that I feel, and that is a valid complaint. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like the biggest problem with that complaint is that we all knew that's the one thing that we all knew before we went into the album. And I mean, I hadn't looked at the track list, but if you had looked at the track list, then it turns out it would have been apparent that they were all at the beginning. So the fact that they put them all at the beginning in a way is kind of a good thing because it means you get them out the way rather than having them constantly appearing between songs.
Sorry, your reaction, like song 5 of the album, like where's song 1 to 4? But I didn't see the song list.
I mean, the thing is though, is that for me, the truth is that that's okay, but like when I'm reviewing this album, as much as I think that is true, and I think we've talked about in the past, I kind of want to more dive over to, okay, what is this album like to live with now that we know what it is? So, you know, it's a bit of a shame to have it spoiled on the first listen and to lose the first half of the album, but now we've got past that. I'm kind of more interested in what it feels like as an entire album. And I would say that, okay, it's not the most roaringly varied album they've ever put out, but I would say it's very solid. And moreover, I just think that the one thing that really comes through to me is that for a band who have so much technical skill, I think there were moments on Unseen World where, and a little bit on Unleashed as well, where for all the great songs, there were some songs where you felt like they were really going 11 just because they're the instrumentalist band, because everyone knows they're so good. It's like, well, we can't have a song where Misa's not absolutely tearing it up. And that's all great, but it kind of means that as a general, the heavier moments lose a bit of impact. Whereas on this album, I felt like it was much more restrained, but I mean that in a mature way. I felt like there was a lot of maturity in the moments where they went crazy. It really felt like it was intentional. And then there were other bits where they pulled back and they instead went for these much more, these very sort of well-paced arrangements. I think the one that everyone's been talking about, and I'm really glad actually this one's got a lot of love, because this is one that I really fell in love with and I wasn't expecting one to agree, was Forbidden Tale, which I think is an absolutely just a superb arrangement.
And also one other song. The One. I feel
these
two songs really are in a similar way.
Like when I heard that, I was transported like 4 years back in the past, and I was like, oh, that feels like such old school Band Maid. I really, really doted on the One. I loved that. I got to admit.
Hi everyone, it's Howard. I'm here editing this video after it's been recorded and just before publishing it, and I wanted to let you know that at this moment I started thinking that we were talking about a totally different song from each other. That's right, my two co-presenters knew which song they were talking about, and I was talking about a different song accidentally. So let's use this next short period of 3 minutes and 20 seconds to see if you can guess what song I was talking about when it's not the same one. Let's turn it into a game so I feel like less of an idiot. That's what we're going to do here. Get in the comments and tell me if you worked out what song I was talking about. All right, now we're going to watch it, and I'll put a little bell sound when I suddenly realize what song we're actually talking about.
the only problem I have with the one is it sounds
Oh,
not
of course
only
you've got a problem with the one.
comes from the man who's like, well, I don't like half the album because I've heard it before. Well,
Like
the thing
I
is,
say something negative, Howard says something positive. Like we say something
you
positive,
seen my
Howard says
reactions.
something
You seen
negative.
my reactions, right? You told me you seen my
I did.
reactions.
I
Well, then
knew
you
this
know
was
what I'm going
coming.
to say,
I knew
which
this
is
was coming.
well, then you set yourself up for it, just like you knew that you weren't going to like the first
Well,
half of the album.
actually,
Don't
Benedikt
complain.
set it up.
I'm
I
interested
just-
because it's actually my favorite song.
Oh wow!
The problem is that the one, there's nothing actually so much wrong with the one itself. It's just the problem is that every single bit of melody, every chord pattern, every bit of structure, it really feels like it's a cut and shut hybrid of songs they've done before, in such a way that when you're hearing certain parts of melody, you start singing parts from other songs they've had before. And I think when a song is that online with the previous formula that's been used in previous singles, the problem is that it, to me, it's a great song, but it is robbed of its identity by the fact that there's other songs like Afterlife. Basically,
To me,
it's a shadow
bringing
of
it
Afterlife.
together and making that hybrid out of it, that is what actually makes it
I
interesting. Because to
and
me,
it
the
does-
first half, I was kind of, yeah, okay, kind of popish. But then the second half and
I
just
didn't get
what
that at all.
became out of it, that
I
really
didn't get that at all. It
hit
was
home with me.
in one gear throughout for
The
me. It was in
one,
one gear
the
throughout.
one is that song, which is like when it the way that it does things, it's like kind of winking at you, like nudging you, like, see what I did here? Remember this?
I don't feel like I feel like if it was trying to do like wink wink nudge nudge, it would instead just tell you exactly what it wanted to say. It doesn't feel subtle. It just feels like it's really just ripping stuff from other Band Maid songs.
It's definitely intentional. It's definitely like a throwback to an earlier era. I can't really say I can complain about that one. To be honest, I quite loved that being in there. That was one of my favorite parts of the album, actually, to be honest, was that kind of throwback. I mean, if they keep doing it, then obviously, you know, later down the line that trick's going to get old relatively quickly. But I feel like Band Maid's built up enough goodwill that they can throw in a little bit of
I mean,
stay on,
just-
no, not a stay on this, but a little bit of a throwback, and yeah, I'll take that.
just to give you like a little bit of fairness, though, I know there was I mentioned this about the song. There was a song towards the end of Unseen World, and I'm just trying to find someone commented and reminded me of this. But there was a song towards the end of Unseen World where I said something very similar. Actually, I said, you know, this, but that to me was an example of a song that was a throwback in a really nice way. You know, it's like it really worked for me. Whereas the one just felt much more like, no, this is really, really, really similar to a song.
Okay, it's interesting that you say that, because to me, the one and also Forbidden Tale, and I also heard that in the comments mentioned about the album as a whole, yeah, some parts of it, that it just feels like a culmination of a lot of things that they did before.
Do you know what, guys? I think I've made a bit of a mistake. I'm talking about
It
the wrong
wasn't
song.
Unseen World.
Oh no!
So the song I was thinking of was actually Go Easy. Yeah, no, that's it. So yeah, okay,
yeah,
right,
I
fair
totally
enough.
agree with you.
All right, there we go.
Yeah. Because
Yeah, it
Go
was
Easy,
Go
I
Easy.
also felt like, yeah, this is kind of the Unseen World style, but it doesn't really give me anything, you know?
There we go. So anyone who didn't work that out, I would love to know how many people were screaming at their screens when we were having that conversation. But yeah, now I know which one you're talking about. Yes, okay, that's on me.
See,
So,
now I'm
there we go.
confused because like
The one is
was,
pretty
like,
slow the
wholeheartedly
first
agreeing.
2 minutes, and then it kind of picks up.
Yeah, that is a totally different song. So congratulations, everyone who didn't work that out, and everyone who did. I'm sorry for the pain that you were suffering. I think there must have been some people going, "Wait, what's he talking about?"
Yeah, me, for example.
Yeah, but that usually
So
happens.
what do you
when we
think of
talk.
the one?
Yeah, no, that well, to be honest, that one to me, it was doing something similar to Forbidden Tale. Like it definitely a very different song, but it was playing a similar tactic. I just felt like Forbidden Tale had done it so well, like that early in the album, that for me, the one felt like, oh, I'm really glad they're doing another song which has progression, but it was just like, yeah, it's great, but Forbidden Tale is still like that's the oh yeah, we got to get that out.
But I was listening to these two songs and I was thinking like Howard must absolutely love these songs because the songwriting is just so different and new and a bit
you are right.
Formula.
They are amongst my two favorite. I mean, Forbidden Tale probably is my favorite. The one, actually was very high up for me. But there was just a lot of really good songs on there. But the fact that it was all so melody focused, and again, not at the detriment of anything else. It's just everything kind of felt like it really fit in place on this album.
Yeah. Unpopular opinion here, but my favorite song on the album is I can never fucking say it. Was it Tu El Monde or something like that?
A lot of people were into that.
Yeah, I love that song. If I had to pick a favorite song off the album, that's the one for me. I really enjoyed that.
Kind of a metal song a little bit.
It kind of is, yeah. Probably why I like it so much. But
that riff is pretty great, and like the start of that song, man.
What did you guys think about them ending on an instrumental? By the way,
well, you've definitely watched my reaction then, haven't you?
Why do you think I'm asking the question? You know. Because I know what. Let's start with Benedikt, because I already know how we'll answer to this.
I mean, it's great. I don't really know. It's hard to compare one instrumental to the next instrumental, but I absolutely loved that song. And as soon as I realized it's gonna be instrumental, it was, I don't know, even better. I thought perfect outro for this album.
I'm going to agree with Benedikt on this one. I absolutely love that they ended on an instrumental. I thought it was great. It had all the energy and stuff like that. And it's the best kind of ending to a track. Maybe I'm again showing my age a little bit here, but again, I grew up in a era where you used to get instrumental openings and instrumental endings to quite a few albums. Maybe on a more side of metal. So maybe not everybody experienced that, but I certainly did. So I got absolutely zero problems with an instrumental at the end, and it was my favorite part when just chill into that, and it actually kind of sad when it finished. Like as soon as when the album ends and it ends on that note, I'm kind of like, it kind of makes me want more. Howard,
I have to say, I really really like this album more maybe even than all the other albums. It might be my favorite Band Maid album, and I thought it was interesting that you said I think you said something about not being too diverse. I actually found it to be quite diverse, like compared to, for example, World Domination, which is just banger after banger.
World Domination is their least diverse album. I think that's the most single gear. Yeah.
Granted. But also I feel like Unseen World, you pretty much have, or also Conqueror, it's more of a, how should you say, toned, or like not toned down, like condensed, that's the word I'm looking for, condensed style or vibe. And I feel like on Epic Narratives, they went like all kinds of directions, which is kind of represented in the cover art also, which I find is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that Epic Narratives for me is like I think it still falls in behind Conqueror for me, but although I prefer the sound of Epic Narratives more, because I think it's well, I'm going to disagree here again with Neil. I think considering the album is very compressed, which we expect, and it's not like a problem, it's just we all know it's going to be very compressed. I think the mix is very good here because you can tell that the people who mixed it knew it was going to be compressed, whereas Conqueror, as much as I adore that album, it feels like they didn't know it was going to be compressed when they mixed it because everything gets squashed. But it's very sparse. They use the left and right side of the pan really well. So even though everything's quite compressed, everything's spread out in a way that you can always hear the bass. You can always hear both the guitars. You can always hear all the vocals. And I think for an album to be that compressed, but still for you to be able to hear everything as well as you can on this album, for me, is them, sort of doing a really, it's a really good balance between those two things. So with some exceptions, I think that's great. But yeah, overall, I think the album is very diverse. I think it's as sonically diverse as Conqueror, but I think this is an album that really does feel like it's doing a lot of things more than their peers would do. I must just quickly revisit, because I know my opinion's been said on this before, but I'm just going to quickly say, I 100%, and I know that Psyche was the one who chose it. Well, she made a bad decision. It shouldn't have ended on an instrumental. That's probably one of the main things that knocked it down for me from being a potential. Because the thing is, okay, you could put an instrumental anywhere in the album. And I know what Neil was saying about having instrumentals at the beginning and end of an album. Yeah, we've all heard albums like that before. We all grew up with that kind of thing. The difference is, though, is that when you have one at the beginning, like, I so praised Unleashed for having this. It's great because it's sort of teasing you. It's like, you can do anything at the beginning. You can put Page at the beginning of Conqueror because you've got the rest of the album to come. So it's kind of like you have this thing where you're being sort of played with because you know that there's the excitement of what's going to come. But when you end on an instrumental, when you end on, however good that instrumental is, you end on a song which is missing one of the members of the band. How is that the crescendo? You've been through this entire album of epic narratives, and the final narrative, the crescendo, the thing that sums it all up, is missing one of the members. And may I also say, is actually the worst mixed song on the album as well, in that it feels really narrow compared to all the others. It doesn't have the same presence as most of the other tracks. So
I still think the Warning song's definitely the worst mixed track on the album.
Yeah, I agree on
that. You could definitely put them in competition with each other, but they have very different problems. Like the Warning song is not quite as gritty as it should be, and the instrumental song feels weirdly small considering the amount of stuff that's happening in it. And I just don't like the idea of ending with like one of the members not there. It feels really like off. It just doesn't feel like that's the ending of the album. It feels like an afterthought. So I must admit, I love this album.
Yeah,
I love the flow of it. It's just the last track.
I always bring that book comparison with an album. Sorry to interrupt you here, Howard, but to me, this is like why I said I feel it's the perfect outro. It's like after Lord of the Rings, after all the action is done, you have like the outro, the
epilogue.
It's just nice. You don't need any more narrative itself. You just need to close it off.
Everyone hated the end of the Lord of the Rings film where basically he walks around and kisses everyone twice. Well, after the action's over, you get all that really slow stuff.
No
one likes that bit where it's all slow motion.
Everyone loves the ending.
No one likes the ending. Everyone likes everything up until the ending.
Even the extended ending, which is even longer.
No one liked that. When he wakes
up,
after he wakes up, it's just
I don't know what Howard's talking about. Let us know in the comments. Do you like the ending to Lord of the Rings?
And we're talking about the bit after he wakes up and he's magically back and going, ha ha ha, hi Gandalf. That bit. No one cares about that. We have to wait for hours. We have to sit and listen to them go back to the Shire and write the entire book that we've just seen. And then he walks around kissing everyone 15 times over before he gets on a boat and fucks off.
But so let me ask you this, because I was thinking if I would have to cut one song out of the album, like just say this one is not on the album, which one would you choose? Would it be the instrumental then?
Well, it depends on if I can move it. Because if I can't move it, then I'd cut it. But if I could move it, then I'd want to keep it because I like the song. I just think it's a terrible way to end an album, especially an album that's been that epic. So I definitely would like to keep it, just not as the conclusion.
That's probably the biggest complaint I could probably say with this album as well, is like with all the other albums, like the way that the songs are in order, it felt like there was like an idea behind it. It felt like there was like a thought and an actual process in how those songs line up and how the album plays out. Whereas with this one, it really doesn't feel that way. Like I said, we get the first half of songs we've already heard, and then the second half of like the other things we haven't already heard. And then you've got, like I said, the instrumental at the end. Again, personally, I don't mind that, but I kind of agree with Howard a little bit that it can, to some people, just feel a little bit tacked on as the last thing on an album.
I totally see the point, especially with having those, like now we have the later half is new songs for us, but maybe in half a year we can maybe look at it a bit more objectively. And I kind of can maybe see, we have that half structure that we feel now a little bit. And also I feel the songs kind of evolve a bit over the course of the album. So maybe the whole album itself is supposed to be like a narrative. And I would say in that sense, it also makes total sense to finish with the instrumental.
That's where I disagree. Yeah, that's the bit where I don't understand. So yeah,
I just feel like this album's lacking a little bit of care and love. I mean, at the time we were recording this, we found out that Band Maid split up their management team, still with Pony Canyon, but Like there's definitely some internal
can-
changes going on.
even know.
Can we just quickly point out though that there's a lot of stuff being said about that that isn't quite actually correct?
No,
Like, so
yeah. Yeah.
it's more that their management company was, I believe it was dissolved, and as a result, they've taken a lot of the same people they had before and have basically put them into this new company. So it's not really like they've changed anything. It's just like more like a rebranding. And obviously now they've got a bit more control. But everyone's like, oh, they're free to do all this stuff and everything's going to change.
No,
and it's just
no.
like,
Yeah,
if you thought they weren't doing something, first of all, you might not know who was stopping them from doing it. And if it was the management, well, like clearly they like the management enough to hold on to several people. So
I
think
didn't
this is just a
honestly.
good
I didn't
thing
know
for
that.
them
Yeah, honestly, I didn't know
administratively,
that they held on to most of the management. But
From the credits I've seen, they seem to hold
yeah.
on to a few
Ah,
people.
okay, fair enough. Well, I was going to say the next point is my next point I was going to make is maybe the management change is a reflection of how this album was handled. Obviously, not then if they've kept a load of them because I just feel like this album just lacks that. It feels more corporate than their other albums. It feels more by the books, more toe the line than a free flowing Band Maid has been. I think for the last couple of albums. Um,
I
I
think it
didn't
just
get
feels
that
no,
feeling.
yeah, I think it just feels very polished. I mean, that with some exceptions, I think it feels like a very polished album. And I think the problem is sometimes when a band releases a very polished album, people can think it sounds a little bit too sterile. I can understand if someone felt this album sounded sterile by comparison to something like Unseen World, because Unseen World is more chaotic. But for me, it all of the
But that's
it
why I
just
feel
feels
Epic
mature
Narratives
and
feels a lot more alive.
yeah, I would kind of agree in that sense, in that it's like it's got room to breathe at points, then more punch at other points. So I just feel, yeah, I feel like it feels mature, but I wouldn't say corporate. It
To
just
me,
feels
it
very
felt really like their style, which was something that I was a little bit worried about, that we will just get another, just get another Unseen World
yeah. When
or
I say
Unleashed,
corporate, I
something in
don't.
that vein, that chaotic style. Because really, when I listen to Go Easy on this album, if I had to cut one song, it would be Go Easy. Because,
probably be
it's
inclined
a
to agree,
banger
actually.
song, but
Let me
it just
check. Yes, Go Easy. Yes, that's the one. Okay.
Yes.
No, it's not the one, but it's Go Easy. But
Yes.
yeah, I would probably agree. I'd probably agree.
And I really feel the rest of the album just sounds more interesting to me. Like they evolved their style in a way that I didn't think they could even do anymore. So I'm really happy with this album.
Well, I'm sure they'll be glad when I pass that on to them.
Yeah, I think it's a solid album. I don't think it's better than the last two we've had though. For me, I wouldn't say that this is a step back, but it's definitely a plateau for me.
When you say the last two, are you counting Unleash in that, or are you
Yeah,
going up to World
yeah.
Conquest?
I enjoyed Unleashed. I know you two have your issues with Unleashed, but for me, I thoroughly enjoyed the chaotic nature of that. I might
It's
be.
got. I mean, it's got one of my favorite songs on it. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I might be
yeah.
one of the, I might be one of few, maybe, but I just love how buck wild that album is, and the fact that they turned it up to 11 for the whole entire thing. I was just like, yeah, fuck yeah, give me more of that.
But I
Um,
guess
It's a
I guess the
different
one
vibe,
counter to that though is that I mean, like, I don't think anything on that album because of the sound is a problem. I think it's because I really like that sound, but for me, that sound was really well done on Unseen World. So that's why for me, Unleashed always felt almost like a follow-up to Unseen World. It feels like a sort of a
Yeah.
extra songs that came from that same idea. So I think the idea is more and I was very much in defense of that sound when a lot of people were like, oh, they've just been doing this like chaotic sound all the time. We had some people commenting like that.
Well, they were
I think
recorded quite close
variations,
together. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit of crossover there as well.
but variation's great. So, for example, if we could have a couple of songs that were Unseen World chaotic on this album, it would actually make it better. If you could have some
I agree
songs
with
that
that.
were even more like so, but then again, we got memorable on this, which is super varied. I mean,
Well,
I think having
depends on the song. If they're
every side
just
of
there
Band
to
Maid
be
would be
heavy, like
great.
Go Easy, I'm
No,
not sure.
exactly. I mean, again, you have to assume that the things fit in. And so for me,
Yeah.
hey, if they didn't feel like putting anything like super chaotic on this album, I'm fine with that because the album works as an album. It feels like it goes beginning, middle, end to me. And it works in that sense. And I'm so glad Memorable's on there, because having Memorable on there, it's like, yes, we've got like a little bit of like a proper full-on ballad on there, just to show that they're not scared to stick them on albums still. Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah. I
So
think
what
for
do you
me,
think of
like you said,
Brightest Star, the other U2 song
I
that's a
love
bit
that. Yeah,
other,
I love that.
different?
For
Same.
me, like I said, that for me, that when that song gets played, that's the gateway for me when the album actually starting for me. Like that's when it kind of truly kind of kicks in, and then, like I said, the back half of me is brilliant. I think I'm more reserved coming into this album just because I do not like the fact that we were spoiled as much as we were,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of songs that
That's
like
why
you
I
said
said maybe in half a year we
yeah,
can look at it a bit
I'll
more
look back at this
critically.
album and I'll think this album is stellar, but I can't help feeling that that first 7 tracks, like because I've already heard them for like a year and a half coming into this album, like I instantly, even now, I find myself just skipping the first half of the album, going straight to track 7 and playing it from track 7
You're
onwards.
missing
But that
Forbidden
doesn't mean
Tale
they are bad
repeatedly.
songs. It's just we
Yeah,
know
no,
them already.
Hmm.
it is true though, the album lacks a little bit of the punch that you kind of feel like you want when you hear a new album, because it's but
Yes.
I in a way I'm kind of glad as well that they get those tracks out the way quickly, so that when the
Yeah,
second half of the
like
album is something. By the way, what did we think of opening with Maggie or whatever it's called? I
Maggie.
thought it was a good opener. Yeah.
yeah, I think
Nice,
it's good.
simple, catchy opener. Yeah.
I think it's a good opener.
I think
Like
that kind of
again,
saved it for me because I only knew the live version and then I heard the studio as first. So it was kind of something a little bit new. At least.
at least, yeah. Again, I'm gonna keep on repeating myself, but it was hard to like get like 100% hyped when again I already knew what it was. I already heard it. Already released. It's
But like
that
I feel the
that's my
songs are
biggest thing.
really, really good.
Yeah, I really feel like they could have took the warning off. Maybe Maggie as well, like that. Maybe one or two other songs. Cut this down to a 10-song album and put those songs on like an EP or something. Released that a year
Or like a
ago.
double EP release,
A double,
all
yeah,
these
double.
songs we knew and then all
That,
the new
that's
songs.
that's a little bit like Anna's debut, where she like
Yeah.
separated it into 2 discs because she knew everyone had heard the singles,
Every,
so she put
yeah,
them separately.
I wouldn't have even bothered with that. I would have just like put them on a separate disc, put the 7 songs that we got left, and maybe add one or two more. And I think the album would have been a lot better for it. But that's just me coming in because, like I said, I'd
Yeah,
heard way too much coming into this.
I think that's a reasonable feeling to have right now, but I think in a year's
And
time you'll
in a
be
year's
very happy for
time,
all those songs at the
yeah,
beginning.
in a
Yeah.
year's time,
Yeah.
I'll play this album in its entirety, 100% for sure. But right now, right up this minute, right at the release, I keep skipping to the back half. That's just me. That's the biggest complaint of this album for me, and I feel really strongly about it. Is they just spoil way too
Also, I have to
much.
say, as a European, with them having one German named song and one French named song, when are they coming to Europe?
Uh-oh, here we go. Here we go.
So
Yeah,
I guarantee
maybe
it. I'll get my
raise
ass to Japan to fucking visit fucking Howard, and they'll fucking tour Europe.
Yeah, probably yes.
And the minute you arrive, they're just
The
going to touch
minute
down in London.
they go to Europe, I'm like, for fuck's
It'll be
sake.
like a social media surprise. It'll be like, surprise everyone, we're in London. Come to Trafalgar Square
Yeah,
now.
I'm like, that would be my look.
Yeah, I think so. In conclusion, then, as we only got 6 minutes left on the free version of Zoom,
We're not
I think
worthy.
there we go. I think the yeah. So I I do agree that the punch was lost by the fact that the first half of the album is pretty much all stuff we've already heard.
I do
But
too.
I think it's an album with a lot of variation. I do like the mix, even though a lot of people don't. There are a couple of songs that aren't as well mixed, but I think overall I like the mix of the album. I think that the album has a lot of melody-focused songs, but is mature about its instrumental. Still has all the nuances that you want to see as well are in there. I think it's got some nice production elements. I think it's got good variation. It's got some really fantastic bangers in there as well. You've got acoustics, we got heavy, and
What would you both give it out of 10?
I don't even really know. I don't really do out of 10 ratings, but I mean, if
Even
if
better. Come on.
I would have to rank all the other albums too first, but
I mean, if I was putting Conqueror at a 9, I think this would be an 8.
Okay.
I would give it a 9 actually.
A
Just
9.
a gut feeling.
Oh, and then I was in
Not
between.
perfect, but I really, really like it.
Yeah, in my review, I gave it an 8.5. So there we go. I'm the middle.
Dude, you said out of 10. You said out of 10. Don't cop out. Give a proper number.
I'd probably, all right. If I had to pick between a 9 and an 8, it's probably leaning more towards an 8 than a 9.
There we go. Well, that's pretty good for all the complaining that we've done.
And the new greatest Band Maid fan here on the channel.
Benedikt's like scooping up all those extra subscribers this week. So
yeah, maybe I like the one so much because of the title.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. I was like, maybe you're giving this a 9 because you don't have enough respect for the rest of their back catalogue, and so I'm just.
I love the one. Now let's talk about the Band Maid song.
Oh god! Oh god! All those subscribers you've just scooped off.
Yes.
Oh,
and they're gone.
Just cut it.
Yeah, no, that really, 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 really. I'm just glad it's here. Again, given the fact that I think we'd said in a video before it came out, we'd said that we were all feeling a little bit deflated about the fact that it wasn't going to have the impact we wanted. So we knew that beforehand. I think given that fact, I actually went into the album with a little bit of a low view, almost like, but I'm going to know half of it already. It's like, well, what are they going to? And I must admit, I came out just like, wow, I actually really got by the end. I got the feeling of like, this is that feeling of listening to a fresh album that I wanted. I'm glad there's 14 songs on here because it means that beyond those singles that were released, we still
I was talking with Neon about it. It's really good that they have so many songs, so you still have a lot.
Yeah, like I said, the back half from track 7 onwards feels like an album within itself, which I'm really glad about. I hope
I'm shitting on Forbidden.
I said they could have made that an EP and all the other songs too.
Yeah, exactly. They could have split it into two halves. So I think, and that maybe that's just me being. Yeah, exactly. Could do. I really hope in the future. Like the weird thing is coming to this album, it's not the girl's fault. It's just the promotion and the way it's been handled and the way that this has been dragging on for what feels like forever. I
feel like that's normal though. I mean, I don't like it, but that's kind of just the way
really
it
been
works.
It's never really been a Band Maid thing though. But this one was just over promoted.
Oh no, they've done some pretty heavy.
They do, but it's like when they in the past when they've promoted, it's like a month, maybe 2 before the album drops, and you're still hyped
about Conqueror. We talk about Conqueror.
We don't talk about Conqueror. But with this one, again, it was like a 1.5 promotion leading up to this. And I think when it finally arrived, like you just said that, I think it was more relief that we're like, oh, we're going to get something more than, oh, I'm so excited, it's here. Which is a really weird feeling because compared to the other 2 albums, like the latest ones, I was so excited when they dropped. And I just didn't feel that for this one. And I don't think it's the girl's fault. It's so hard to criticize them for something like that because I don't think they really had any input in that or the way that it was gone. So
I think that's a fair final judgment. And on that note, it's time to wrap it up. I would say by the sound of it, we all had our little things that we expected.
Just
maybe
one thing I want to know from the people in the comments. In the song The One at 2 minutes 52, around that, for about 5 seconds, there's something, I think it's a saxophone or some clarinet or some sound.
Yes.
You heard that too?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I think it might have been a guitar effect, but
I wasn't sure. I wanted to know what it is.
We'll ask Andy. He's the man who always knows these things. But anyway, we all had our different opinions, but I think overall, the fact that we all gave it like upwards of an 8 out of 10, I think that's a pretty good sign. So get in the comments, tell us what you think. Remember to like and subscribe and all that stuff because we don't have that many subscribers, you might notice. They're wonderful people though. And until we hopefully see you back on the next episode, remember to keep your ears to the east.
And ask yourself why golf.
Not